Theme: Learning Silence and Trust from the Virgin Mary. Key message: Mary teaches us to listen, to surrender, and to trust God's plan in quiet humility. Scripture: Luke 1:38. Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your word. Prayer: Mother Mary, help me learn to be silent, to listen deeply, and to trust God in all things. Day 5. Mary, model of holy silence. Advent invites us into silence, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of expectancy, the silence of listening, the silence of Mary. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and constant motion, Mary stands as a quiet and radiant figure. Her life is marked not by dramatic speeches or public miracles, but by deep interiority, listening, pondering, and surrendering to the will of God. She is the woman of silence. She is the woman who listens. She is the woman who says yes with her whole heart. She is the woman who teaches us how to prepare for the coming of Christ. On this 5th day of Advent, we walk with Mary into the mystery of holy silence. 1. The silence where God speaks. God often speaks in silence, not in storms, not in earthquakes, not in fire, but in the gentle whisper, the voice Elijah heard. Mary understood this well. Before the angel Gabriel appeared, Mary lived a life rooted in silence, attentive, pure, humble, and receptive. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of God. Mary carried this silence within her, a silence full of faith, a silence full of expectation, a silence ready to say yes. Her silence made her available to God. Her silence opened her heart to hear the divine invitation. Her silence allowed her to receive the Word made flesh. Without silence, she could not have heard the angel. Without silence, she could not have discerned God's will. Without silence, the incarnation would not have occurred in her heart before it occurred in her womb. Mary teaches us that silence is not something passive. It is an active opening, a space where God's grace can take root. 2. Mary's yes, a surrender born of trust. When the angel Gabriel spoke the divine message, Mary responded, "Let it be done to me according to your word." These words are not simple. They contain the depth of Mary's trust, the strength of her faith, and the surrender of her entire life. Mary did not fully understand God's plan. She was a young girl, faced with a mysterious and overwhelming message. But her heart was anchored in God. She did not ask for guarantees. She did not demand explanations. She did not resist out of fear. She trusted. She surrendered. She said yes. Her yes was the door through which Christ entered the world. Her yes changed history. Her yes became the model for every Christian. To say yes like Mary is to surrender control, to accept God's will even when it is unexpected, to trust that God's plan is always better than our own. 3. The journey of hiddenness. After the Annunciation, Mary entered a life of hiddenness. There was no celebration, no applause, no recognition. Instead, she carried the mystery of God quietly within her. She traveled to help Elizabeth. She returned to Nazareth in silence. She lived each day simply, faithfully, lovingly. Mary's greatness lies not in dramatic events, but in faithfulness to ordinary life. She shows us that God often works in hidden ways, in daily duties, in relationships, in quiet acts of love, in moments no one sees. Mary reminds us that holiness begins in the hidden places of the heart. 4. The silence of pondering. Scripture says twice that Mary pondered all these things in her heart. Pondering is different from worrying. Worry is fear speaking. Pondering is faith reflecting. Pondering is the willingness to hold mystery without forcing an answer. It is the ability to trust God even when events are confusing. It is the quiet acceptance that God's ways are higher than our ways. Mary pondered the words of the angel, the journey to Bethlehem, the birth in the stable, the shepherd's adoration, the wise men's gifts, Simeon's prophecy, the flight into Egypt, Jesus growing in wisdom, the loss of Jesus in the temple, the hidden years in Nazareth. She held every mystery, every question, every struggle, in silence, in prayer, in faith. In our world, we rush to explain, to fix, to control. Mary teaches us to pause, reflect, and trust. 5. Silent strength. Mary's silence is not weakness. It is strength rooted in faith. strength to stand at the foot of the cross, strength to endure misunderstanding, strength to persevere in humility, strength to love without conditions, strength to trust God through every sorrow, strength to remain faithful when others fled. The world admires loud forms of strength, but Mary reveals a different kind, a strength clothed in gentleness, quiet endurance, and unshakable faith. The strongest hearts are often the quietest ones. 6. Learning to listen with Mary. To live with Mary's silence is to learn to listen. Listen to God in Scripture. Listen to God in prayer. Listen to God in creation. Listen to God in the quiet movements of conscience. Listen to God through the events of your day. Listening requires openness, stillness, and a willingness to be taught. Mary listened before she spoke. She reflected before she acted. She prayed before she surrendered. In a world full of noise, listening becomes an act of love, a way of saying to God, "Speak, for I am here." 7. The silence that gives birth to Christ. Mary's silence was not empty. It was fruitful. It gave birth to Christ. If we cultivate the same silence, a silence of prayer, surrender, and trust, Christ can also be born in us. Every time we choose silence over anger, Christ is born. Every time we choose trust over fear, Christ is born. Every time we surrender our will to God's will, Christ is born. Every time we love with humility, Christ is born. Christ is born in the silent places of the heart. 8. Mary in the silence of faith. Faith is often silent, not because it lacks strength, but because it is rooted in trust beyond words. Mary believed without demanding proof. She trusted without knowing the future. She surrendered without hesitation. Her silence was the silence of faith. Faith that knows God's love. Faith that rests in God's promise. Faith that walks forward even in uncertainty. This is the silence Advent needs. This is the silence the heart longs for. This is the silence that transforms us. 9. Walking with Mary this Advent. To prepare for Christ's birth, walk with Mary. Sit with her in silence. Pray with her in humility. Trust with her in surrender. Listen with her in stillness. Hope with her in faith. Love with her in purity. Mary is not distant. She walks beside us. She guides us gently toward her Son. She teaches us how to open our hearts to Christ. If you let her, she will lead you into a deeper Advent, a quieter Advent, a more trusting Advent, a more beautiful Advent. Short closing prayer. Mother Mary, teach me your silence, the silence that listens, trusts, and surrenders. Help me quiet my heart from fear and noise. Lead me closer to Jesus and prepare my soul to welcome him with humility, as you welcomed him with your pure and faithful yes. Amen.